All right. So, believe I'm live right now. I never know half the time when I start these things, dude. But basically, here with Athen, we just wanted to chat. He saw me on a different Discord, so I don't know, dude. We were talking. I mean, the last live stream that I did before this one that ended up having to be taken down is kind of like. I remember we were talking about friendships and like building friendships. I don't know if you wanted to go that route or if you had something else in mind that you're wanting to talk about. I'm open to whatever direction you're wanting to go, dude. I'll kind of walk down that path with you, basically.
How do you think people in like 10 or 20 years are going to view us now? Like our time period, how we're going to view ourselves, and um, just in general.
Yeah. So I mean that's a big because like I don't know. I'm under the impression I'm like people are always going to be people regardless of where they're at and how they're doing their things, and
Mhm.
I feel like if we can get to the point to where we can start to do more of our own like stop looking outside of us for the answers and kind of look within is going to be a great way. But kind of like we were talking about beforehand as well too is like everybody's going to evolve in certain ways. Like I think there's going to be a big split in 5 to 10 years or so. Like some people are going to be much more like internet based, like in the cloud, like with Apple VR headsets and like I think of the book Ready Player One, where it's just like everybody's living in like a VR reality, and there's going to be those people, but then there's also going to be the other people that are like still wanting to be like in human connection and like talking with people and like just chatting with one another, basically like we once did. And I don't know who's going to really fall behind in those regards, but I do see that a lot of what's going to be happening over these couple of years, it's just things are going to be, I'd say, it's hard to say where things are going to go, but I do know that like the internet's going to be the big thing. But I do think a lot of people are going to be following into certain old habits and kind of like breaking away from certain things compared to like wanting to jump into like new things or try different things or maybe experiment with other areas. Like people are going to become so complacent and just like accept facts as they are. I mean, I've been noticing this over the past years, and as you were talking to before we joined too, is like you were talking about how, like your profile picture changes from different politician to different politician to different politician, because I feel like so many people are just like they're blind that they're being like controlled in a certain regard, and they don't have like the freedom, like they think that everything's going against them, but it's just like I've come to realize after doing the last stream and then doing this stream is like it's better to at least go try and make those mistakes and then adjust and pivot from there. Whereas if you just keep focused on this one thing and like wishing that things are going to change and staying on like your couch and weeping and crying and whatever it is for things to be different, or like you're fat and you're obese, not saying that's you by any means, but like if you're waiting for things to change and hoping somebody's going to come save you, I just don't see that happening in the next like 5 to 10 years at all. I don't know if you've noticed that as well yourself too, or where you kind of stand
I've
with that whole
noticed that.
thing.
I've noticed that too. I've noticed that too. Hey, see, you always have like the uh, in life. You always have like the ability to what is it like? You always have the ability to change. You just need to find it within yourself. It always can get better. You just need to find it within yourself, and that's sort of like a life lesson that a lot of people don't learn, and a lot of people do learn. That if you're in a really shitty situation, nobody is really going to save you. You have to do it yourself. And that's what I learned myself in my life too. You
Yeah,
know.
dude, it's tough, man. Because like I mean, sometimes like I've wished maybe kind of I don't know. I've always been under the impression where like I put in the work and that's what I'm good at. Like I mean, that's what I'm doing right now. Is like I'm doing my quote unquote reps, having conversations, getting out there, like trying to hopefully maybe do something else because it's like I can sit on the sidelines and complain about how the world is, or I can actually go out there and try and do something with it. I don't know if you found a certain way in your own life on how you've been able to like come to those realizations, or if it's just kind of like come with time by any chance.
So for me, all right, all right, all right. Well, I'm actually a pretty religious person. I've never really been against like religion. I've never really thought that like God wasn't real, but I just never truly knew. Like I never really like felt it in my life, like I would pray, but I never really feel anything, if that makes sense. I never really feel anything, and the thing is, I had in 2020, I was in high school, and this was during the COVID-19 pandemic, and it was so early on in my life, and the entire country, the entire world just locked down. I was on lockdown. Everybody was inside. We were all on the internet, and during that time, uh, I lost, basically two different like friend groups that I held very, very close, you know, and that was one of the most traumatic situations of my life. And it also happened while I was, going through a lot of struggles at home and stuff like that. And it was just terrifying. Like, I didn't really know who to trust, where to go, like, I never really expected much of this at all. I didn't understand, because I had been in the right in both situations, but I just didn't understand why you don't really understand betrayal until it actually happens to you. And that had put me into like a series, like a pretty big depression for like years and years on end. And there had always been like the looming memory of what had happened. Um, and, you know, I had tried to find new friends. Eventually I did. It was around late 2021. It was in probably like the stupidest fucking way possible, you know? And, you know, somehow they didn't really have the hallmarks or like the red flags of like all of like the people that had came before, and I could see more of myself in them, and I wasn't really necessarily staying, because I felt like, I stayed friends with people, I sort of beat a dead horse. I would stay friends with people despite, a lot of red flags, or manipulation or whatever, just because, I'd known them for years and years and years on end. I wasn't ready to let go. But for these people, it was like a fresh start. It was a clean slate. And that allowed me, having a group of friends that wasn't like around like all these weird people and all these weird habits, it really allowed me to grow and change and evolve, and really build like mental fortitude, confidence in my own self and my own ability, to not hate myself and respect myself, and not really rely too much on like, the opinions of other people, people that really you shouldn't care about their opinions to begin with, and so I used to run, I used to run. I think in 2020 it was. Let me look. So in 2020, I ran around. 2020, I ran 4.7 miles an average that year. The next year, 2021, 5.4 miles an average. 2022, I cut down on it, 2.6 miles an average. 2023, I got back into the habit of it, 4.1 miles an average. And this year, 2024, 6.5 miles an average. In May of 2024, 8.4 miles on average. April of 2024, 7.2 miles an average. And March of 2024, 7.4 miles an average. So basically what I would do is I would jog repeatedly, these like extremely long distances, throughout my town, the neighborhood. And I would do it repetitively, and I would listen to music, and the music, it just sort of, I couldn't do it with the music, and with the music, I just kept running and running, and I don't know how I had seen so much, but somehow I had still survived, and I was still going, like nothing could knock me down or kill me. And I realized that, and that turned me to God, that turned me to God, and I prayed and I accepted him, and I started reading scripture and, things that were spiritual. And I think it changed my life. But the power was always within me the entire time. I just didn't know, and I didn't want to believe in myself.
Yeah, dude, it's heavy, man, because I've myself have recently become closer, I would say, to God. I just did another podcast with another dude, or chat with another guy the other day as well too, and we were talking about that spirituality aspect and like
Yeah.
this whole different route. And it's interesting to see, because like I myself, like I have always been under the, like, if I don't like people or if I don't like vibe with them or something like that, I'm like, that's cool. Like I'll just go be by myself. Like that's just always been my mentality. It's probably not the healthiest, but I mean it works. I'd rather be like alone than be with people and have to put on a front that I like don't want to have to put on. So like
Right.
hearing
And
they
that's my view now.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah. So like
Yeah.
those things that kind of it changed my perspective on the world, like knowing that like sure I can be around these toxic people or these people that aren't like helping me with my goals or whatever it may be, but it's just like this is why I like making these videos and having this community because it's just like the internet, as we were talking about beforehand too, is like it brings all these different people together in different ways. Like I'm finding so many more people that are like on the spiritual path that have like found God and have like started reading the scriptures and like found that like he was in a sense like our savior. I look at it maybe in a little bit different perspective than most people do. But it has like it's worked on me in more ways than I ever could have imagined. And that's why it's like how you would run for miles and miles and miles at a time. We all have this power within us. It's just a lot of the time society, from my own knowledge, from what I've experienced, and it's just like we're conditioned to not allow ourselves to express that innate power within ourselves. And sometimes it comes down to like us having to be in that negative bad situation to be able to eventually be like, all right, I'm going to let go of this. I'm going to give myself the freedom to like go run and find other aspects of myself and be like, I can't do this on my own. I have to bring in like a stronger power, a stronger outside force that will help me achieve all the things that I want to achieve in life. Like I like running without music, but I'm also kind of a manic. I don't know. I'm me running without music. I used to listen to music and podcasts all the time, but like I've been wanting to get more into like understanding like my thoughts versus somebody else's thoughts, and having that like the music be gone or not having a podcast or something that I'm listening to nonstop has helped me kind of like solidify my own ideas. And it's why like I do a lot of running and having like doing a lot of things by myself is because like somebody told this to me a little while ago was like he's like God's always been working on you in some way shape or form. When I was sitting out and meditating in Grand Junction all the time, like I just sit there. I didn't know what else to do, so like I would just go out into nature and sit there by myself. And I did that for years, dude, until like coming to this realization where it's just like there's so much more and other people that have these similar interests. And that's where I feel like the internet comes into play. It takes time, dude, and I'm glad to hear that you've been able to make it through like those rough times, being able to run. And I don't know if you were the person that commented that like you were running, because I think I did like a poll on the page where it's like how fast can you run a mile, and I don't know if that was you that said you could do it below.
I didn't comment though. I just saw it just now.
Yeah, I just remember that where it's just like there's some people where it's like they're running faster than a 5 minute mile. And I'm like, I don't know if they're griefing me or not because like I just got into running. So it's kind of changed my perspective on like running. I do about an 8 minute mile-ish or so. And it sounds like it's a crazy thing, man. Like it's weird how much it actually impacts like our mental health, I would say. It's been one of the best things that I've ever picked up over the years, other than biking. Like it's just nice being able to see things move, compared to staying in one place all the time.
Right. Yeah, man, and that's why I just think that like I think that your channel is very interesting, man. Just like the concept of like all these long form chats with just random people from your audience, and just not necessarily like some big name celebrity or not some big name, just that's what I find interesting. That's what's really interesting, because like I'm gonna be honest, like there's a biblical verse. It's like more of I don't remember the exact quote, but what's unseen is eternal. Whatever. Like, I don't really care about celebrities or whatever. I more or less care about the reason why I'm captivated by rural life, and I'm probably gonna always live in like the countryside or at least the suburbs. Small towns like 16,000 people or whatever, in like fucking New England or Pennsylvania or whatever. Just because I can't really for the life of me just fucking like the hustle and bustle. I don't really like that. I really like community more than anything.
Yeah, man. I'm right there with you. I don't know how people live in the big cities. Like even just like the other day when I drove out to Grand Junction, like where I just went out back to one of those small little towns and I was like, okay, I remember why. It kind of humbles you a little bit. Like in the cities, it's all about like this hustle and bustle. And I've always liked that impression too. Like my life always before like doing this was like me just having conversations with everyday people. And I found everyday people like yourself and myself very interesting. Like you get to hear all these big names like on all these other big podcasts and whatnot and like online and videos, and it's like that's great, but it's just like Joe Small on the corner of 6th and Main or whatever it may be, like he's just as interesting, if not more interesting, than this other person that like has 3 or 4 written books and he's on a podcast. I'm like, that person has the exact same amount of interest as this other person does. So I like this aspect of being able to just talk with like other people that watch my videos or just other random people that I meet online, because it's like we all have these stories, but we seem to devalue ourselves multiple times because we're like expecting this other person to come in and be like, you're this big person, but it's like these big people, they didn't become big until like they put themselves out there, and then they just kept repeating and repeating and repeating until something came of it. Like I mean, sure, some of them, don't get me wrong, they had their like they had a leg up, but it's just like just because they had a leg up doesn't mean that the person that doesn't have a leg up can't win. Like I think Kevin Hart is a prime example. Like that dude grew up in like the ghetto basically. Like he didn't really have much going for him, but like I mean now he's like one of the biggest actors. The Rock, same thing. Like the dude didn't have much when he started out, but like he worked his ass off to be able to get to where he is. So it ties back to what you're saying. Like we all have this innate talent and this innate like ability within us, and it's why I love talking with like just everyday people like myself, because like we're all in it together at the end of the day. And if you can figure out that scripture, man, I'd love to read it as well too, because I had Psalm 123 pop up the other day when I was on my way back home, which I think it was something along the lines of like, I lift up my eyes to you, the only Ithran in heaven. But I just remember seeing those things like, to who enthrones in heavens as the eyes of slaves look to the hands of their master, as the eyes of the female slaves look to the hands of their master, so our eyes look to the Lord of God till he shows us his mercy. And it's like, it's mercy on us, Lord, have mercy on us. For we have endured no end of contempt. We have endured no end of ridicule from arrogant or contempt from the proud. But it's just like everybody's going to have their own opinion. I don't know if you know much about that verse at all or anything like that, but I just kind of found those things like, they're just interesting, dude. It's things that I never really understood all that much, but like I've just delved into it a lot more. And I just want to share like everybody else's stories of like what somebody else has to say. Even if like, if one person listens to this, dude, I'm under the impression, I'm like, I've done my job. Like we're having a conversation. We did something right. I know I've gotten to the point where like I get so, maybe it wasn't necessarily discouraged. Maybe it was beforehand. I would get discouraged of other people's views and like their growth and things like that. And it's like, I'm doing the best that I can, but that's all I can really do, is I can only put in the work that I know how to do. And these are the things that I seem to excel at and I love doing. So I just want to do more of it. To hopefully maybe help somebody else, like maybe go make friends outside or like find a new friend group, because I know 2020 has screwed my life over as well too, where I didn't know what I was going to do. But I did find a good group of friends. I don't really hang out with them anymore because we didn't have the same goals or drive or ambition as like other people do. So like they were great people and I love them to death. But for the things that I want to accomplish in my life, I have to be like, I'm sorry guys, like we just don't hang out anymore. Because all they were doing was like sitting in their basement drinking all the time. I'm like, that's not me. So I had to make a decision. Like, do I make the decision and stay with this group of people that are going to like, maybe a quote unquote, like to them it's happy, but to me, like that's not happiness. Like I like the work, I like the grind, I like, as weird as it is, I like the struggle to climb up to the top. And then once I'm up at the top, I'm like, all right, let's go back down and start over. It's weird, but I don't know. I find it fascinating, and it kind of takes some time to, I feel like, find that right tribe of people or community of people that are on that same like wavelength. And clearly, like you are there right now. It's just a matter of like putting in those daily repetitions, day after day after day, basically.
Same, yeah. And my sleep schedule after like quite a great deal of time, like completely fixed, like I completely fixed it. I started doing schedules, for my days, and that helped. Journaling, like my schedules, and like, as you said in one of your videos, treating your life like a video game, that's fun, that's fun, doing stuff like that. I haven't watched that yet, but I do the same for my life.
Because were you a big gamer beforehand then, or you play any video games or anything like that?
I only play Minecraft. I'm not gonna lie. Um,
It's a great
yeah,
game,
that's
man.
about it, man. Yeah, yeah. It's my favorite game to be honest with you. Just because I mean, honestly, if you're free right now, let's play it, dude.
Yeah, dude. If I had Minecraft installed on my Mac, I totally would. And then, I mean, if you want to play it, by all means, well, you're doing, and you can share your stream and screen and whatnot, and we can watch that. Like, I'm happy to do that as well too.
Sure.
'Cause
Good
I've tried
time,
to
don't you?
experiment with those a little bit as well. I don't understand it all that well. I had to personally, dude. I had to give up video games, um, and like anime and a lot of things. Like I watched one anime for a certain period of time, but it was just like I would get so addicted to the video game that I was playing, where it would just be like I'd spend the whole day playing it, and I was like, this isn't helping me reach the things that I need to. So instead, like I dedicated time to like reading books and like meditating basically, and that was what I ended up doing for 99% of the time.
Right. And I never really I think I stopped playing video games as much after like 2020,
Hmm.
with all this stuff that happened that year. And I think mainly, um, I was always, I played it a lot in 2022 and 2021. Just because, video games, I feel like I'm not able to really pick up video games in and of themselves, but like I'm able to pick them up if I'm playing with other people.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, for example, Minecraft is always fun when you play it with other people. And when you don't have other people, it's like not as fun. When you have other people and you're all just doing your own thing and you're making all these crazy shit like nations and stuff like that, that's very fun. That's so fucking fun because what were you saying? Like it's like so for example, when you have like friends all across the world, you sort of need visual stimuli if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Just to sort of sort of like feel as if you're actually there talking to them or whatever or whatnot. And I do that I did that a lot. And that really helped. And I couldn't really make much friends in real life. Now I don't really struggle with that, but it was always good back then, and it still is good now for like a lot of my online friends. So I would recommend. It's up to you, but I would recommend. If you want to like, fucking, like, I'm probably gonna make a Minecraft server soon. I'm just gonna make it creative, and I'm sort of like gonna like make a sort of like a sort of I'm gonna make a lore for it. I'm gonna make like my own civilization or whatever. And I'm just gonna have like everybody like be something in it, and fucking we can just fucking. I'm not saying like get addicted to it, but it's just like a fun thing to do while we like hang out and talk to each other, man. It's
Exactly.
like that's what I like video games for. I like them for the social aspect. Like I'm a social gamer, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And Minecraft for me, it's not like one of those games where you just grind and grind and grind. It's more of those in creative at least. It's more of the game where you like have to build and create stuff. And I preferred creative the most.
I'd have to agree with you there. My thing, like, I don't know how much gaming content you watch, but I've kind of had this idea, and I've talked about it with one of my other friends that that's also a part of one of the discords. I don't know if Simon was ever in the war room at all or not, but he was a part of a different one. But I've had this idea because, like, gamers that I watch online, typically, like, the gaming content that I have consumed beforehand it's more of those, like, it's more entertaining. I feel like it's like let's get a laugh out of this, which I'm like that's great. I just have more like I've improved my life more, and that's my main goal is like with the channel with what I do is like I want to help like this thing has helped me out so much that I've been able to make friends like in real life. I've been able to gain more confidence around like being able to talk with women or like going to the gym, like exercising on my own, like finding different
Right.
communities and things that I can do that are outside. I'm not saying like playing video games is bad. I just know that like me as a kid, that's all I would do. Like my buddy and I, we would just sit in the basement. And like when I was in college, freshman year of college, all I would do is like I would sit at home, like I'd go to classes, I'd come back home and I'd watch gamers online for like the whole day, or I'd binge watch YouTube videos basically of Let's Play, and then I'd also like watch some other stuff too. And I'd watch movies and anime, and like I just didn't feel very meaningful. And then sophomore year was when I got like into like freshman year, I also had a girlfriend, and I was going back and forth to see her every other weekend, which was not healthy for me by any means because she was mentally unstable. But she's a great. That's a whole different thing. But like on sophomore year, then I got like actually involved with other people, and we were smoking a whole bunch of weed. Like we were just hanging all the time. Like it was a great time. Like I loved that so much, and I wasn't in front of a computer screen all that much. Like it was, I found more joy, and this was just my personal experience, but I found like more joy and like actually talking with people out in public type of thing, and like going out and like messing around and like maybe like going on a bike ride or like walking around or a hike or just getting stoned in the park and then like going to like a movie or something like that. Like I found that to be more fun. And then
Yeah.
yeah, because then like junior year, that's when I kind of got like bullied, picked on a little bit in a certain regard. Like I needed those people in my life to help me evolve. But it was just one of those things where like I love still watching gamers content. Like I absolutely like I love doing that. It's so much fun being able to watch like Dream or like Smitty or like these other people online, Let's Game It Out, that like play these games, and I absolutely love it. It's just like that's more of like my little break, I would say. But like I've also never really had a big group of friends or community members that I've wanted to do gaming content with. So I was like, well, if I can't do that with other
what I was
people.
more saying was like you don't really. I'm not saying like as a content thing, just
Mhm.
like more as like a, like we have a server in
Yeah.
this Discord. Like, let's all just get into it. Yeah, I wouldn't. I'm gonna be honest with you. I play games, but really wouldn't. I really wouldn't want to like make gaming content. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's just not for me. But fucking being able to just join like a what is it like a being able to just be in like a just being able to just play with friends,
Mhm.
on like something chill like Minecraft, sort of like how Stardew Valley was. It's just fun, you know.
Yeah. And I mean, by all means, dude, like, I say keep at it. I don't know why my mind works this way, but, and my buddies have given me a hard time for it. They're like, "Well, Caleb, why don't you just enjoy life?" And I'm like, I am enjoying life, but I'm also like, if I'm doing this thing, I might as well document it in some way, shape, or form, just because then I can look back on it and be like, okay, this is what I was doing at this day in my life, or whatever it may be. And I just like that aspect.
Sure.
So, like, even if you don't do it for content, or I don't do it for content, or if I do get Minecraft, which I would love to get back into Minecraft, my buddy and I, we played that game until like the sun came up when we were in high school. It was so much fun. Um, but it's also one of those things where it's like, I want to be able to like do big things, like just retire and have like an income for myself. And I don't know, it's weird. I feel I almost get depressed like when I'm complacent in a certain regard, where it's just like I feel like I'm not doing anything with my life, and it's kind of sad. But I mean, I feel like
I
that's
know
just
you.
part of it.
Yeah, and I get the same way too. Because for like the past 3 years, I didn't really I made a lot of progress because I've been dealing with like a lot at home and a lot in life, a lot of just like guilt and like abuse and stuff like that. But now it's like this year, like once like November or like August of 2023 hit, that was when like the grind started for me. And that's when I really started like getting out there and deciding, maybe I want to do YouTube for real this time. Maybe I really want to like network and I want to meet people who will help me with this, and sort of, not necessarily like sort of, what is it like, people that have like similar goals to me and stuff like that, and that's sort of, I'm sort of like you in that regard. Yeah. I'm at the same state you're at, you know.
Yeah, because yeah, dude, August of 20 when was it? August of 2023? I wonder if that was when I kind of made the decision myself as well too. I'd have to go back and look at my GoPro footage, because I ended up going up to the mountain, dude. Around that time, I think it was right around August or September, where I had to make a decision. I was like, am I gonna stay working my corporate job, where I was making good money and I was selling, and I loved it, man. It was fantastic. I just got to talk to people all day, but I just didn't feel like I had like a purpose. And I was listening to this book the other day called Grit, and the lady talked about there's three different individuals, where one is like there's three different bricklayers. One person is just like laying bricks. The second bricklayer is like laying bricks to build a church, and then the third person is building the home for God. And it's just like the first one is the job, the second one is a career, and then the third one is like your purpose. And it's just like trying to figure out like which one is a purpose, which one is your career, and like which one is a job, and like being more purpose focused. Those can happen in the same place, but it's just kind of like it depends on where you're at and the things that you're doing. Because I don't know, I want to do more purposeful work. I find it more fulfilling, like being able to talk and help other people out, even if I never get to meet them. Like I'm lucky enough to meet you and you watch my videos, but it's just like even if nobody ever watches my videos or ever comments on them, I mean, I know that at least some people are watching them and listening to them, and my hope is that maybe they're doing something with it. But I mean, I have no way of knowing. All I know is that like it's helping me improve in a selfish way, and it's also helping other people improve too. Because I think you said
Well,
something.
it'll
Go ahead.
listen. It'll definitely like pay off because I've literally like several times just made like a YouTube channel just to make one extremely well made YouTube video. And like for some reason it always all of them always get traction. Like one of them got like 9,000 views, another one got 5,000 views. Like I don't know, I just get lucky really often. But the thing is for me, what I struggle with is I struggle with motivation. I struggle with can I get out there? Can I really, continue doing this? What if I want to make a new one, because I don't really know if I want to do this type of content and stuff like that. It's a struggle, you know.
Are you doing anything in particular to find those like lucky videos that you're saying are luck when it's actually you're putting in some sort amount of skill?
Well, actually, it really isn't. It isn't necessarily luck. So it is a little bit of calculation, and I did get lucky because my calculations were right. So, for example, like I made one YouTube channel where I would like repost like historical like music or whatever, like historical music from like like just different like I guess like time periods in history. So there was this, and it was like a protest song that was in Russia, um, when like the Soviet Union was collapsing, and it was about Mikhail Gorbachev, who was like the last leader, and it was sort of like this soulless song almost. And I sort of took it, and I don't know, it's not really that well made, but it is actually I edited it pretty well. This was 2 years ago in 2022, and like a few months after I uploaded this, I think Mikhail Gorbachev like died. I didn't even know he was gonna die, and just like within that, like fucking blew up. So and that's kind of fucked up. It's kind of fucked up, but I guess at least it gave me a like a somewhat popular YouTube video. So and there was another one. It was on my other channel. Don't put this on because that's my full name. But there was you can see it for yourself. This was the one I'm proud of the most. It's the Disintegration Loops. It was an album by William Basinski,
Mm-hmm.
and I edited it and I put it in order and everything like that. And I basically, like, like a lot of people came onto that comment section, and like people were like, "Okay, come back, dude, come back." And it was kind of interesting because I would post other music here, because I'm really passionate about music, and I basically said to people like, because this is a pretty deep album, and it was dedicated to the people who died in 9/11. I said, you can feel free you feel free to like vent in the comment section of the video, say something deep, or just comment in general, and that is what people did. uh, People I've never met before, and the fact that like people I've never met before are enjoying and thanking me for my content, and like having like these beautiful experiences from them. That's great, you know. That's great. And I feel like music is like the thing that brings like everybody together almost, because like music, it just gives you this feeling that just can't get away. You know what I mean? Like it sort of speaks to your soul. Like music can speak louder than words very often.
And so you found a certain genre that you enjoy listening to more than others?
No genre. It's basically anything that's meaningful. Anything that's meaningful. So like any sort of music that's unique, you know? Nothing that's copy and paste, cut and paste, something that's meaningful, something that had some story behind it, you know? That's why I'm like a big fan of like certain musicians. Like I'm a big fan of Billy Joel, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Billy Joel, like he makes some really deep and meaningful songs, you know? and a lot of people just know him for like one or two songs that are like his most popular, like Uptown Girl or some shit, you know. But like the thing is, you know, you listen to like his entire albums, and you listen to the songs that aren't necessarily hits, you know, and you listen to the songs that are like the off album ones, like the Summer Highland Falls and like, you know, Where's the Orchestra and shit like that, and that is like those teach you like some of the most meaningful lessons you can learn, you know. um, Summer Highland Falls is about struggling with depression and the ups and downs, you know. And this song is just beautiful, man. This song's beautiful, and it reminds me a lot of my hometown, you know, and just like the stuff I had to go through in 2020, 2019, and 2021 even.
Yeah. That's I was never a big music guy. I still don't seem to be a very big music guy either. I listen to maybe the same couple of songs on repeat, more or less. I also try my best to kind of stay away from more, I don't know, it's like sad and depressing music, even though sometimes like I will indulge myself in it from time to time. But I seem to try to give more music that like does speak more to like my heart type of thing. And I was talking about the dude the other day, with another guy the other day about that as well too, where it's just like certain type of music's like they just resonate with people more than like others. Like certain songs, like what you find unique, somebody else might not find unique. But then there is that other person that will find that exact same song unique as well too. So I just love those types of things, and it's something that I've come to realize just over the years, where it's just like we all have our own innate talents and interests, and it's interesting too because it's like what you're talking about is like you get lucky with these YouTube views. I wouldn't consider that by any means. Maybe I said that already, but it's just like you put in the work. Like you understand what you're doing. You're making your repetitions. You're doing your research, and like you're having fun with it. And like for me, like with my YouTube content, like it's getting better as it has. I just have never really known my audience that I was speaking to, because I was just like I just want to make videos that are gonna help me first off, and now I'm starting to understand it's like let's make videos that help other people as well too. And it seems like it's gained a lot more traction, doing it that way compared to how it has been doing it beforehand. But yeah, music's probably it's probably one of the biggest parts, I would say. It plays a big role in a lot of people's lives, and it's changed multiple lives as well too. I just could never be that person that like goes to like concerts. Like I feel like I'm like crammed in like a coffin basically. I'd rather go listen to
Oh,
somebody
me
speak.
neither. Me neither. Caleb. Let me give you one of the best pieces of advice for making YouTube videos, content, and probably life in general. Um, Always offer a product that
Hmm.
nobody else is offering. You know, if you sort of see a cow on the side of the road, you're not going to stop. It's a cow on the side of the road. If you see a purple cow on the side of the road, you're going to stop. You got some attention. You got to offer some product that nobody else has offered, and people are like, well, you know, I'm not that guy. I don't really have $1 million winning idea. You know, I don't really have that. You know, and people say that, you know, but they always have that winning idea, you know, and they don't really realize it. They don't realize that, you know, sometimes a bug is like a flaw, or a bug is a strength. It's a feature. I think you noticed that, you know. So for example, like, you know, like I sent you like the blueprint for my channel, and I talked about how I would make use of like the limited, like my lack of name recognition, like how I just came in, you know. And I decided, you know, if I wanted to make a theme like that, maybe I could say, you know, my channel is made possible by viewers like you, kind of market it like a public access, like PBS type of thing. And that is like how you, that sort of, it's like me, like sort of taking a flaw and making it a feature, you know. um right. And you know, I don't really have like a specific niche that I want to do, you know. I don't really have a niche that I want to do. I can't find one, you know. So I'm more like, I can't really find a niche or really anything like that. So what if my niche or whatever is the fact that I don't have a niche, you know, and it's just my theme is just, it's weird, you know. That's what I was thinking, you know. And you always gotta, it's always like you have the power. As stupid as it sounds, you have the power. You have all the ideas within yourself. You have everything within yourself. You start writing, you start journaling, you are going to get your winning idea maybe on day 4, you know? That sounds like a pretty wild statement to make, but you'd be surprised, you know? It's just a matter of if, you know, are you going to do it? You have one shot, you have a choice every day. Are you going to do it or not? You know?
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, I like that. Yeah, like the PBS made viewers like you, because like as you were talking about earlier too, and I've fallen into the same category or boat, where it's just like I have all these different ideas, and I'll create a different channel, and I'll try this idea, and it's like, okay, well, I'm actually bored of that, but I tried it, and then it's like, I'll make this other channel, I'll try this other thing, okay, I tried it, I didn't like it, and I do that over and over and over again. But it's just like, why not just like have me be the niche, like in a sense, like have me be the person that like have it be that way, and like use those creative bugs or aspects that you're saying to like create something that wasn't originally there, because we all have these ingenious ideas. It's just a matter of like getting to them. And I guess beforehand, like I have all this information, dude. Like I understand how to make offers and create like good. I know how to sell very well. So I've been changing my perspective and framing around those things. It's just weird, like seeing numbers on the screen. Like it's like I'm talking to all these people, but it's like I'm also really only just talking to one person that's interested in this one specific thing. It's strange. Give me 1 second. I do have to go to the bathroom again for some odd reason. Drink too much water, but I'll be right back. Oh. All right. Oh, yeah, dude. So I mean, that's a good point. Like having viewers like you, other people involved. I don't know, man. It is a once in a. I mean, it's not really necessarily a once in a lifetime thing. I don't know if you're still here. If you're just on mute, okay, cool.
No, I'm still here. I'm just sort of watching. I'm just rewatching, like the DVR, just seeing like what I said. You know, I'm just sort of wondering.
What do you think so far from what you have said?
Here. I'm just gonna temporarily deafen just to hear this.
Yeah. Dude, so I mean, this whole thing, man, it's all a journey at the end of the day. Some days you got it, other days you don't. But like Athens is saying, is like it's a matter of just putting in the reps. I put in the reps. I try to put in the reps in the best way that I possibly can. Some days it works, other days it's like you just kind of fall flat. But I mean, as long as you show up, like last night, prime example, I went to the gym. I wasn't super excited. I mean, I was, in a sense, like I was excited, but also at the same time, I was like, I'm shot, I'm tired, I'm exhausted. And I just put in the reps. Like I did what was required of me for that night, and I actually had a great workout. It's the same thing what I found out from running. Certain days I don't want to run, and then I get out there and I start running, and all of a sudden I do 5 miles, and it's like, what happened? It's just that like those first official things are always the hardest aspects, and then I've kind of realized that it just grows with time. There's always going to be struggles and trials and tribulations, but if you keep working, you're bound to succeed in some way, shape, or form. I don't know exactly how it works, but it works in some way. At least that's my hope. Keep putting in the reps. Yeah, just keep putting in the reps. And you can eat healthy, can change all these other things too. But yeah, made by viewers like you, PBS. Huh. Dude, I don't know, bro. Like, I love these types of things, man. Love getting to talk with people. Just have a conversation, kind of learn. I know this one, it seems like I'm doing a lot more talking, which I appear to be. I feel like there's both. Like, when I think back to other podcasts or the things that I've listened to, I mean, there's always those, like, different conversations that seem to take place. I don't know. I mean, I do.
You know, that was amazing. Yeah. I'm proud of myself, dude.
Dude, that's awesome. Yeah, you liked it?
Yeah, dude. Fucking formats like these are great, man.
Yeah, I like it.
That's sort of good because it's just like a permanent memory there that's like out there on the internet that you can just look back at any time, you know. All right, we can get back into it.
Nah, dude. I mean, if you want to keep chatting about that, like, I'm happy to explore that more because I mean, as you were talking about earlier, there's like that lack of motivation that you were saying. So I mean, that is one of those things where it's just like we're always our own worst critic, and we think that this next idea is going to be the thing that matters. But it's like this is also like a little snippet in time of like this is where I was today, and then it's like I can look back at this in 2 years or a year tomorrow or whatever it may be, and be like, oh, okay, these were the things that I was thinking about. So I don't know. I like it, and I'm glad that you've enjoyed the things that you've said as well too. Because yeah, man, that's awesome.
Right. 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 Right.
I did end up finding that video as well too. So like how I was talking about how you decided like back in August, of where you were like wanting to go and the things that you were wanting to do. Like I found out that like it was September 16th for me when I decided I was like, all right, I'm gonna go in on YouTube, give it a try. Like I basically, as weird as it sounds, it's like I basically died to my old version and ideas of myself of what was possible. And then ever since then, it's just been like me trying to understand these new ideas and concepts that exist, and it's been a ride, dude. But it's crazy to see like how far people have come. Like here, I'll show you. I'll show you this. I think I can share this. Let's do this one and do this. And then, hold on, I need to move this out of the way. Is this one? There we go. Okay. So, like, this whole thing, so, like, I got a GoPro back in August-ish or so. And basically, ever since then, like, I do my best to document and record something every single day. Just so that then I can look back and be like, oh, this is where I was at. Like, I went to an anime expo. Like, these were the books that I was reading. Like, these were just, like, the things when, like, I went out to the mountains. And I just document basically everything that I can. I just find it's cool just being able to look back and be like, oh, this is where I was at. Like, this is the progress. Because I feel like our memories are so, like, our memories are great, but they aren't fantastic. Like, they're good, but it's also like, isn't it almost better to, like, look back and be like, oh, this is my progress as to where I was. Even if I never do anything with these videos. Like, most of these clips and videos that I've gotten, I've never done anything with them, but it's still just kind of neat to have, like, if I do want to look back and be like, oh, this is what I was doing back in October 8th of 2023 or whatever it may be. So, I don't know. Felt like sharing that with you, man.
Right. Right. And for me, I made the decision around the same time, and I sort of found you guys around that time. I also found some other friends that do YouTube around the same time. They're all pretty busy right now, so I can't really talk to them much. But they've been pretty great too, you know. And sort of like for me, with groups of friends like those, it's like sort of like, you know, like some people, you know, like, you know, you want to help them. You know, you want to help them. You want to learn. You want to level them up. You want to grow them. You know what I mean? And a lot of the time, you'll also run into people that are like, we had to deal with this in my other group of friends that the other group of friends I had on YouTube. Sorry, people who want to do YouTube, and we dealt with that just now. We sort of kicked the guy out because he was sort of like way too egotistical and narcissistic about wanting to do YouTube, and sort of he was focused more on being like not really like a good friend, and more or less being like a YouTuber climbing to the top and getting the most views and popularity as soon as possible. And we were we were like noticing it. I called it, in like December, and he just drove it, and I just quit the group by a certain point. And I realized, I start to feel, I'll quit the group, because they were sort of afraid of confronting him, or like they were anti-confrontational. They knew what was going on, but they were anti-confrontational. And I came back, in like February or like late January, because one of them called me up because they still had my number, and me and him, we caught up for like a few hours, and we were just sort of like, it was sort of like a very raw discussion, because this guy, all of them were such good friends. It was just this one guy, and I had sort of been through so much like crazy and toxic friendship, so I knew exactly how these people worked and like what they were sort of up to, and it was a pretty raw conversation. And eventually we talked about it, and we were finally able to, make a decision, and we cut the guy off, and I sort of feel like a lot of people, um, a lot of people are bound by other people's criticism, and bound by like, they have to be a good person, they have to be nice, they don't really have an ego, and they're not really narcissistic, and for that reason, people feel comfortable telling them when to not do something, or when to do something. But for this guy, he was just sort of like brash and inconsiderate, and you're gonna run into like a lot of people like that on the internet. I've ran into so much people like that on the internet before, and usually for people like me and you, we can sort of, I guess, sift through them and like instantly, sort of like within a few seconds, notice, or like within like a few conversations, just notice like something's up, and then we find out, you know, and that's what I'm grateful for. Like the fact that I was able to, sort of, that these guys, like after like I'd come back after a few months, and I talked to them again, like the group that I left, they told me, yeah, you were right, you did that to me, and you did that to them and us. And yeah, it's pretty wild, when you've been through so much, you almost like know too much, you can sort of notice like these, um sort of, you can notice these things before they come up, you know you can sort of call it from a mile away.
Yeah, you can kind of pick up on the patterns of what's happening.
Right.
Where it's like, oh, I've seen this done before by this person, so I know what's going to happen, and I
Yeah,
need to confront him or say this thing so that we are able to avoid this outcome or
it's
whatever it
always
may be.
good to have pattern recognition when you're in life or with friends, and that's how I found good friends, and that's how I keep finding good friends, you know more people that are aligned more with my values and my morals, more or less.
Yeah, it's hard when you don't know your values or your morals to begin with. So it's like you just kind of let everybody in. But then as you start to find out, it's like, okay, I don't like this. But like, I think that's why it's good and why I would always let all these other people in, because it's like, let's listen to everybody and see what they have. And then, okay, I like this trait in this person, but like, there's these other things that I'm not a huge fan of. So like, I still love them, but I'm also like, this isn't somebody that's going to help me in the long run. But I do like these certain things. And it's just like, I don't know if that's a bad thing or not. Maybe it kind of
Yeah.
makes me a bad person, but I mean, if it does, it also maybe just makes me human for like having my own like individual preferences type of thing. But yeah, it's just
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Well, you don't need to explain yourself or say that you're a bad person. You might be a bad person for that.
That
Because that's sort of like that's sort of that's where I eventually, realized, some people you need to shut the door, and most people, a lot of people, you need to sort of, you can let them in because they're warm. And those types of people, they shine out. I've been in Discord servers with like 300 or 40 different, or 70, or like thousands of people I didn't know, and I was in these big packed friend groups, and they weren't really friends. They were more or less like people that like, they're all very cliquey, you know and eventually I was like, I would rather have few good friends than like a million thousand friends that suck, or shitty, or want me because I have this or that, or I'm friends with this person or whatever, you know.
yeah,
And a lot of people don't realize this, but A lot of toxic people, most toxic people, they project their toxic traits onto other people, because they're afraid of confronting it themselves, And when you realize that, you're like, oh, yeah, all right. So, but people, you still sort of take their criticism seriously, you know. Right. And that's sort of like, what sort of like is an obstacle in sort of leaving, toxic people or like bad friends, you know what I mean? Um, the person that we had to kick out in my other YouTube friend group was because he was kicked out because he would so at first start, he would sort of go around and he would be like, okay, you know what, Athen, you're really cocky, like, and he would just sort of make these unsolicited, like, sort of like insulting comments about me and other people, and then like it would be like, well, and he would say, well, you always ask everybody for help with editing, and you over talk about how your abilities to do stuff, and you can't edit, and you say you can, and just like everybody around him is just like not able to respond because they don't really know what he's talking about. It's not that big of a deal, you know, and then you find out, yeah, he's cocky himself. He's egotistical, and he's sort of that's sort of how a lot of these toxic things work. And that's a thing that people don't realize very often until like it's laid out in front of you.
Yeah. I feel like we're also just kind of like the world just almost reflects us. Like it's just like a mirror, basically. Like I do this meditation, and I mean, I recommend it to other people too. It's a little strange and different, but it's just like I'll look in the mirror, and it's kind of like I don't know how to explain it, but it's like I'll look in the mirror and I'll explain it the best way I can. And
Well,
it's
I'm into lucid dreaming, and like I've astral projected before, so like I think that it isn't like the weirdest thing that you could some meditation thing isn't the weirdest thing.
no, and I've always wanted to get into lucid dreaming and like astral projections. Like I've tried it, but it's never been like I do dream journals every morning basically, but other than that, I haven't been able to all that well. A little bit, but basically like I'll look in the mirror and like the reflection, I try to make that like my main person, like that's me instead of me like on the other side of the mirror. And it's like trying to see myself like, okay, this is me looking at myself from the other point of view, and it's very strange, but it's like here's my mirror reflection and here's me, and I'm like I'm instead of me being here, I'm in the mirror reflection instead, looking back at like this other version. It's trippy, but it's kind of like it shows that it's like we're all just kind of connected in a certain way, which I find really cool. I do want to though ask you like, how'd you get into like the whole astral projection and like lucid dreaming? Like, did you have to practice that night at night? Like, I've heard there's certain like strategies or tactics that you can do to be able to like get that done.
So I had insomnia, and I could, barely sleep, and I would stay up for extremely long amounts of time, and I really wouldn't have a good circadian rhythm. Um, and one day I'm like trying to figure out how can I make myself sleep, because I didn't really have like sleeping pills or anything like that. And I stumbled across guided meditations, you know, because people would recommend. I asked ChatGPT about it, and they recommended it to me, and a lot of people would recommend guided meditation to me in general. I fucking hate that saying ChatGPT recommended me something, dude. It makes me feel like I'm a fucking hipster. All right, but but anyways, um, yeah. So they were talking about they were talking, and I they people so they said that there's guided meditation videos on YouTube, and I looked them up, and I found this guy. His channel's like dying, so like shout out to him if he fucking sees this. But there's this guy named Meditation Vacation, and he seemed like a really down to earth person. He had really good fucking really good content, and he would make these lucid dreaming videos, and they were guided meditations, and I was like, dude, this is so fucking cool. This is so fucking cool. I can choose to do whatever I want in my dreams on command, and also I can be guided into sleep. This is fucking cool. And I was able to get sleep that night, and I just have been doing it since. I stopped it because I don't really need to do it as much anymore. And I heard about astral projection from like this, and I was like, wait, fucking is astral projection real? Like, like I was like, the whole time I thought it was like some stupid like fucking schizophrenic thing, you know. And now I realize like, oh shit, there's actually some truth to it, you know, or you know, even if there isn't some truth to it, it's just fun to do, you know.
So I want to ask you this as well too. After you brought up that whole schizo thing, because I have this. So like, how would you define a schizophrenic? Like, what would you consider somebody to be schizo?
Okay, well, this is actually a really interesting concept. This is something I really love to talk about because I actually never sort of open up about this because it's sort of like there's so much stigma, or this is like a completely unheard of issue. You know, people don't really talk about this that much because people that suffer from stuff like this, they um, they don't really want to talk about it because they're going to be seen as crazy or whatever. So I'm going to clarify this by saying I'm not schizophrenic, never have been, um, but I was in an abusive family, so I would complain about being abused, and my parents, you know, sort of sent me to these sleazy psychiatrists, and they themselves were really fucking weird, and they would sort of they misdiagnosed me with like schizophrenia and like would dope me up on all these fucking drugs and whatever, and sort of gaslight me or whatever into thinking I was crazy or there was something wrong with me or that I always needed, you know, medication to be happy or whatever. You know what I mean? And these people would always be arrogant and sort of make these like comments that were terrible to my mental health. You know, and ironically, they were people that were supposed to help, but they made it worse, and they would try to manipulate me and basically try to sort of get money off of, you know, misdiagnosing people or pushing like a certain drug or whatever. And it was pretty fucked up because I I didn't trust like therapists, or I didn't know how to get actual mental health help from, you know, what's supposed to be mental health, but sort of traumatized me and tortured me. And for a lot of my life, I thought that I didn't think I was schizophrenic, you know, because they didn't really even tell me that they gave me that fucking diagnosis, you know, but I thought I had some sort of like, you know, depression disorder or like some sort of like, you know, major depressive disorder where I need medication to be happy or whatever, you know, and it's sort of like when people would go to sort of like would talk about really anything, like any suffering they have. They call this the Martha Mitchell effect, I believe. Um, they would sort of be called like their accurate perception of actual events would be dismissed because, you know, they were apparently like mentally ill. You know what I mean? And because somebody misdiagnosed them, and you know, because they have this diagnosis, they're apparently like not valid, like none of this happened, they're crazy, you know. It's very easy to say that for any sort of abuser to say that, you know, and you can't really get out of like that weird cycle of gaslighting because nobody talks about psychiatric abuse. So while I was like, you know, I was treated like I was a schizophrenic or some crazy person, I was like jammed in like these terrible psychiatric hospitals where they would torture children, um, and um, I sort of looked into it and I realized what really makes a schizophrenic, you know, because I've been off of, you know, all these weird drugs for years now, basically. Um, and I didn't talk to any of the people that caused this. You know, I still have to talk to my parents, of course, every now and then, but um, I realized you can't really, there's not really a definition. You know, there's really somebody who's out of touch with reality. You know what I mean? But it depends, you know, what do you consider out of touch with reality? Because you look at politicians, you know, and you look at these people who are, you know, billionaires and celebrities, and nobody calls them crazy, but they call the people that are struggling and that are genuinely traumatized schizophrenic, you know. Um, and a lot of people, I had an abuser, and he sort of used the fact that I was suicidal as a result of his actions to paint me as crazy. And he would basically say, I don't even remember why I cut him off. I don't even remember what he did, you know, but he clearly reinforces that he can't move on because he's suicidal or he's, having like trauma from what happened. And these people are pieces of fucking shit, but you realize we don't really look at mental health the way that we should in this country. We don't. We don't look at it at all. We think that we are always afraid of looking at these murderers or these criminals, and we're always afraid of this intrusive thought in the back of our heads. Could this be me? We sort of, and we shut that down, and we're just like, okay, this person is crazy. We don't understand why are they doing these crimes? Why are they doing this? Why are they off the rails? Why are they depressed? Why are they suicidal? Why do they want to kill themselves? And we don't understand that, and we think that, it can be solved with putting drugs into people. No, it can be solved by giving people plans, and talk therapies. That needs to be done way more often. Being able to talk about your problems and understand what is internalized guilt inside of me. What is this? Why am I doing this? Why do I feel this way? You know, people don't really want to look within themselves, and they sort of would prefer to hurt other people, but a lot of people that, sorry, this is just a really emotional subject.
No, dude, you're good. Appreciate
Right?
you sharing.
Yeah.
Cause yeah, I mean,
And it sucked for me because I was told I had anger issues by people who were far more angry and violent and abusive and like delusional compared to me. And I got off of it immediately, just cold turkey, and 2 months before I turned 18, and I was like, oh shit, like ironically, this is what caused my problems, having to listen to these people who were trying to put me down and trying to say I wasn't valid, my trauma wasn't valid, and giving me things that weren't the cure, and I've seen so much shit in my life. I know so much about the world. But despite this, I'm so strong, and I don't even really feel like I have PTSD or anything like that, which is kind of wild,
yeah, dude, it's a lot, man.
We don't we tend to not understand why, because I have never been schizophrenic, but being wrongfully called a schizophrenic, and being treated like I was one, it opened me up to sort of understand. It made me interested in understanding, why are these people schizophrenics? Why do they become like this? Why are they, like, why are they out of touch with reality? And yeah, and actually, the fear of going crazy is one of the biggest fears of any human. Most people have the fear at some point in their lives of going crazy. That's just what I've noticed. That's what I've heard. I don't know if you've had that fear, but a lot of people have. And there's been like a lot of people like fear, like they go on these mass Googling binges, like to see like, oh, do I have this? Do I have that? And a lot of it is just opening doors and opening more doors and finding more and trying to find more. And at the end of the day, you don't need to give a shit. You look at what's in front of you, and that's love.
Yeah, man.
So yeah. And man, it sucks because I'm just, yeah, man. It's just the fact that like a lot of children can't really say no to that type of thing. Like, they can't really like consent to not withdraw consent and have their own bodily autonomy of what to have in their bodies. That's disturbing to me because there's so much other children that are in the same situation I was in, but they're never going to be able to find out, or they might find out, but by that point in time, it might be too late. It's an issue we don't really talk about at all in this country, and it's disgusting because friends of mine that I didn't meet through things like that, like just regular friends of mine, lifelong friends, they've struggled with like psychiatric abuse too, and it's just so fucking weird. We don't have radical acceptance in this country. We don't we're so focused, our politicians and our demagogues and our are just so focused on grouping one, saying there's a crisis, and grouping all these people and calling them mentally ill, and the stigma. And just no, it's just, we don't need to do that. We need to understand that these people can very well be us. At some point. You know, and I feel like there's a lot of double standards. I feel like women are called crazy when they're just emotional because they've been hurt so much. And um, I feel like politicians and billionaires and pieces of shit, or celebrities are not called crazy, but they're just called geniuses, or they're just called. Just fucking turn on the TV and just you're like, yeah,
Yeah, dude.
yeah, yeah. And I feel like we really need to move on in this country. We need to put the bullshit up the door. We need to man up in this country, and we need to understand, these parts about us, these traits about ourselves, they suck. You know, there's a lot of injustices. We need to fix them, but we need to just get to that point. And the part of the reason why I became religious, why I switched to Christianity, was because Christianity, it makes it very clear, it's not about proving you're better than somebody else. It's not about anger. It's not about revenge. It's not about all of this. It's not about that. It's about being righteous. It's about being good. It's about being Christ-like. It's about being genuine. And that's 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 what's important. Being able to find flaws in yourself, and always saying, because when you repent for something, you don't say, well, everything's going wrong in my life, so I did this shitty thing. You just say, God, there was this problem with me because of this thing that I did, and that's how you don't shift the blame. You don't go around. And that's how you change, and that's how you move. You know, right?
Do you have any ideas or suggestions, like on what, like instead of focusing on like a we, because I feel like it does have to come down to a we at the end of everything, but like I feel like it doesn't start with a we at first. It kind of starts with an I. I don't know if you have any ideas or suggestions on like what could be done differently.
With mental health.
Yeah, mental health, the politicians, like all of these crazy things that are out there that seem to be happening right now. Like just with the stigmas and everything that's going on. Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, mental health. So if you want me to go straight from mental health, first of all, I don't give a shit if they're a criminal. I don't give a shit if they've been charged with something. I don't care if they're a child. I don't care if they're 16. I don't care if they're 15. I don't care if they're 8 years old or 7 years old or 4 years old. They should be able to say no or yes to a drug being injected in their bodies, or a pill or whatever. They should be able to say no or yes. They have that type of autonomy. Their parents should not have ultimate autonomy. DCF and child protective services and stuff like that, they aren't effective. They aren't effective as people would think. In many cases, they actually make it worse for the child, And therapists and psychiatrists, you need to take the money the fuck out of it. You need to stop. The pharmaceutical industry needs to be broken up into a million pieces and scattered to the wind. And, it shouldn't be a business in general to profit off of a certain drug to push onto children, or a certain drug to push to save mental health. That stuff should be done not with money in mind. You know what I mean? Because I feel like money is the ultimate corrupter of anything. I feel like money corrupts really anything. It makes people shut up, it makes people change, it's a drug basically. And I think you need to take money out of mental health and stuff like that, and you need to take it out of the healthcare industry and stuff like that, and that's how you fix it. And we also definitely need to change the DSM. And we definitely need to focus more on radical acceptance. understanding, even for the most terrible people, what happened in their life, not excusing their actions, but what happened in their life that caused this. Um, you know, I hate to say this, but it's a really disgusting thing that I've noticed. It's really horrifying. Um, it is mortifying. We aren't, as a people at the current state, like, willing to talk about this problem, but you know, okay, actually, I'm not going to talk about that, but here, let's move on to another subject. I also feel like, I'm a person of color, um, and sort of, I'll see like how people, like white people, sort of talk about people of color, people that are anti-racist, reportedly will talk about how we're brown or people of color and we're different, like in a way that's sort of a little bit condescending. You know what I mean? And I don't really want to be treated like I'm sort of like a brown person. I just want to be treated like I'm a human. You know what I mean? I don't really want brown to be at the beginning of my name. So I don't want to be the first brown this, the first brown that. I want to just be a person who's known, for example, like in you know sports, for example. If I'm like the first player on a team that's a person of color, I don't really want to be known as the first person of color on that team if I'm the one who's getting all the home runs or whatever. I don't really know how sports works, but you know what I mean. I want to be known for my achievements, not my skin color. And I don't really want it to be. I feel like also there's a really disturbing thing. Um, this is a little bit of a controversial subject, but I've been abused. I'm a man, and I'm proud. I'm proud that I have survived. And I feel like a lot of people don't really think that men can be abused in the same ways that women can too. And people think that just because you're a man, that you should have fought back, or that's not how it works. You were hurt. And gender has nothing to do with it. Men and women get abused, and just because there's a statistic about it, and there's not really much statistics done about how much men are abused, it doesn't mean that women or men are any less valid for the trauma they have gone through. And I feel like we need to move past these imaginary labels like gender and race, and we need to sort of focus on changing. And it's going to be a lot. All of us, left or right, you know, all of us are going to have to look at our dark traits, our flaws, and all of that. We're going to have to change. And a lot of people don't really want to do that. They really want to keep an ego, and that's what politics is. Because politics, the way that it works, especially with social media nowadays, is just you need to be perfect, McGee. You need to market yourself in a certain way. You need to be a brand, basically, and that's not healthy. The fact that you can't be vulnerable and open about who you are, and people don't really care about your accomplishments, but whether or not you've got the biggest smile, or whether or not you're the most good looking or attractive, or you're the most charismatic, they care more about that. And that's why we have the people that we have now, and a lot of people have an ego, and maybe we need to. I don't know what we need to do, what we really need to do. Of course, we need to take money the fuck out of it, and we need to get more civic participation in our politics and educate people more on like how to get involved, and we need to get uh, you know, and that kind of is happening. Like I noticed that like Generation Z is like getting more politically involved than a lot of the generations before, because it's such a terrible time in our lives. You're a millennial, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So yeah, um, yeah, and a lot of us need to pass labels, and I think social media. I watched it happen. Social media. I hate it. I love the I like how the interface and the concept of Discord works, but I don't really like Instagram. I don't really like Twitter. I don't really like, like algorithms. I don't like algorithms. Because what they do is like they sort of, for example, on Instagram. Go ahead. Ask any person who uses Instagram Reels. Look to ask them to talk about the comment sections and how fucked up they are. And like that is disturbing. Because they boost like the most disgusting and terrible comments. Not because they have the most likes, but because they have the most replies from people calling them stupid. That's how like really fucking stupid movements arise. And people become really fucking stupid because they see this first, and it's called predictive programming, and it's called manufacturing consent, and it's really fucked up. It's really fucked up, and Mark Zuckerberg isn't gonna admit it. I will hate that guy till I die. The shit that he's done to my generation, but we really need to stop the. We need to get involved. We needed to get involved yesterday with immediately tackling how crappy the social media system is. How it boosts all of us everywhere from being in these sort of really these echo chambers that are overly ideological. And I'm not saying we need fucking centrism. That's not what I'm saying. People think I'd be saying that. I'm saying that the most crazy people in any political ideology get sort of boosted to the maximum, and the people who actually are there in those camps that want to like actually improve this and that, they're shunned out. They're shunned out, and they don't really get anywhere, and they're sort of like they're called weak, and they're called softies, and they're called not this enough, and that happens not just with politics, but that happens with race too. That happens with race. A lot of people are like, for example, I read a book called There, and it was about sort of like how Native Americans aren't just hated by other people, and how they aren't just ignored by other people, but they're ignored by their own people. Like Native Americans, like they online, for example, they face discrimination from their own kind. Other Native Americans will call other Native Americans not Native American enough, and they're like, okay, well, I'm called a Native American, but am I an American, or well, what am I? And I'm not white, and it's fucked up. It's just I think that the internet is good, but it is also disgusting how people use it. And I remember earlier on in my life, when the earlier internet, when there were websites for everything, and now it's just everything is just condensed into like a few social media sites. Back then there were like websites for entire video game guides, and like it was just the internet felt more like it's just like a surreal sort of like escape from reality. It was like a second life, and now it's just sort of like life, and life is fucking terrible, right.
Do you really think life's all that bad?
No. That's if you look at Instagram and you look at social media every single day, and that's why I cut out social media, you'll feel like life is terrible, because you'll always be seeing the most terrible parts of life, because they try to get your engagement as much as possible, and they sort of lure you in with these addictive things to make you go crazy. I don't like that,
Yeah, dude,
Right.
it's a whole thing, man. Like Instagram, the content, like everything that we consume, it's molding us in some way, shape, or form. So it's just like what you consume is going to dictate your life. So it's just like our feeds are probably completely different. Like if I go on Instagram and my explore page is probably going to look different from yours. The same thing with YouTube. Like it's going to look different from yours. Like no two people's YouTube search page, Instagram page, like homepage, TikTok, whatever, are going to be completely identical. Like each video is going to be slightly different because it's going to be giving you the thing that you yourself are looking for. And that's why it's like I've done my best to kind of like not use it in those terms anymore. Like I use it more for like business purposes more than anything else, because I kind of like need to, because I get to connect with people like you and other people around the world, which I find incredibly fascinating, which I couldn't do beforehand. And now it's just a matter of like finding those solutions. But it's just like, what are those solutions that we can do? Because like you were talking about educating people as well too, is like I've come to realize, maybe you have as well in your life, like you can't educate somebody that doesn't want to educate themselves. You can't help somebody change that doesn't want to change. So it's like, how do we go about those people? Like you weren't a religious person at first, and then you found out like, okay, I'm going to accept God because I had all these other things happen. It's like, we kind of come to these realizations on our own. So it's almost like we can't control what somebody else does, but what we can do, from what I've been able to find out, is like we can at least have these conversations, and maybe it'll resonate with one person, and then maybe that one person will share it with somebody else, and they'll be like, oh, hey, I liked how Caleb and Athen were talking about these concepts that I didn't really understand at first, but now I had this, like I listened to this podcast or this conversation that they had, and it kind of opened up my eyes. Like maybe I am addicted to social. Maybe these kids are taking pills that shouldn't be taking pills, and like they're losing their free will because their parents are these authoritative figures. Which, I mean, I get it. Like we as kids, we need that helping hand because we aren't like deers or birds or other animals that just innately have this intuition that they can just go out into the world and fly and walk and be on their own. But it's also one of those things where it's just like we almost have to sorry about that. We almost have to take like control of our own lives and do what we can do, and in the hopes that maybe somebody else will resonate with it. Because like the politicians and the things that went on during COVID, like maybe an unpopular opinion, but I'm like, this isn't the right things and things that should be happening right now. I looked at it in terms of like, we're just kind of screwing everybody else up. And now that I'm realizing that like everything is just, in a sense, is socially constructed. Because if we think about it too, like going back to certain media or news or like people like Googling these things to like see if I'm crazy, it's just like we didn't have those things 100 years ago before the internet existed. So like we didn't have these labels, and I'm not saying that science and the things that have happened are bad. They've progressed us a lot, but also at the same time, it's like I feel like it kind of hinders us in a certain regard. Like we can't do the things that we ourselves want to do because like we'll look this up and it's like, oh, I have this life-threatening disease, but it's like maybe you just have a small little rash on your arm or something like that, but you went down this rabbit hole online that shows you all these other different symptoms that you may have. And it's just like, that's not true. Like, and this is the thing where it's just like stopping consuming media and looking within ourselves and controlling what we can control. I found a lot more peace of mind doing it that way because I can't control the actions of somebody else. And I can't, like, sure, maybe I'll have those intrusive thoughts that pop into the back of my head from time to time, but are they mine? Maybe, maybe not. The mind just plays tricks on us multiple times, and it's why I like listening more to the heart and like following like the love that we have within us and sharing it that way, because I feel like love's always the answer. As corny as that may be, but I feel like I've come to realize that that's the truth. And it's just like everybody's going to have something. Everybody's got something. But it's like you got to be the one that makes the decision for yourself, even if it does mean like leaving other people behind or doing other sorts of things that are just very, I don't know, I guess challenging in a sense. But it is also just like I can't educate somebody else. Like I can't force somebody else to read this thing that I know will help them. I've tried multiple times. I've had people who are alcoholic and I've like, you're drinking way too much. I'm scared for your life, basically. And I was just terrified. And I confronted those people. And it's just like, it doesn't end well. Like they are like, I'm living my life well. Like this is the way that I want to live. And I'm like, but like, look at this. Like, look at all these other good things that are over here. And they're like, no, I don't want those. Like you can't. I can lead the horse to the water, but I can't make him drink type of thing. So it's like we have to be willing and open to have these new ideas and conversations. But I've come to realize it's like very few people, from what I've come to realize, like they'd rather complain about the outside world and outside circumstances compared to like, well, what can I do? And I don't know if you ever heard of Jordan Peterson at all or not, but he was big into like clean up your room, clean up your own house before you go out and criticize the world. And a lot of people, they don't clean up their own house before they go criticize the world. They just go criticize the world without getting their own like shit put together, basically. So I've been more, let's get my shit together and then I'll go out to the world and kind of like share what I can. And clearly I'm still working on certain aspects, but it's like you also got to start where you are. So it's challenging, but I do my best not to condemn other people for what they do. I'd rather inspire them for what they're going after in life.
Right.
But yeah, dude, the whole schizo thing too, the reason that I asked that as well, because like you brought up actors and all these other people out of the world, it's just like, who's the one that just dictates and decides like who's being absent from reality? Because I mean, clearly if we think about it, like there's a big group of people and everybody's like, okay, yeah, this is how everybody should behave, and anybody that doesn't behave this way is ostracized. But it's like, what if that one person that's being ostracized is actually the one that's actually sane, and everybody else around him is actually they're the crazy ones? And I just have never really understood that. Plus, it's also like, if we look at actors, I feel like actors in a sense like they're schizo, kind of, or they have, yeah, I'd say that in a sense, because like they go play a different role. Like they aren't themselves when they're acting as this character in this role. So like, would that not make them schizophrenic, or is my definition of schizo wrong in that regard?
Right.
So, but hold on. So I kind of asked a little bit of a question. So like, when you're schizo, because it sounds like you're educated on this, like schizophrenics are people that like they have multiple, or is that multiple? That might be MPD, multiple
No, no.
personality disorder.
Listen, listen. So schizophrenia, it's like, well, nobody knows. No, there's no definite. Nobody has found like the exact cause of schizophrenia. Like it just never really ever been found. You know, it's people say it's a combination of genetics, and environment. You know, and some people say it's altered brain chemistry, but that's like a whole different thing. You know, so the thing is, you know, uh, it's sort of like you're out of touch with reality, and you know you're sort of erratic, and so much people could say that about other people. You know, like for I'm gonna be honest, like most of the people who were going around calling me schizophrenic like had way more schizophrenic like and narcissistic traits than I did. You know, and like psychotic traits than I did. You know, I never really had those. I really wasn't even quick to anger. You know, and it was kind of fucked up how they abused me. You know, but that's sort of what the definition of schizophrenia is. You know, but it's just I don't really know a concrete definition, but I just know like that's what people are like. That people are like schizophrenia is like the textbook like crazy, you know.
Yeah, I feel like we're all a little bit crazy though. Like we all have our own tendencies,
Right.
and it's just like, who's the one that decides what crazy is? Because like what I think is crazy might be different from what you think is crazy. But then the people like, okay, so I have you ever heard of Alex Honnold by any chance?
No.
Okay. So this dude, to me, is absolutely insane and crazy for what he does. So this guy, he's a rock climber. He's big into rock climbing. But what he does is he doesn't wear any like belts or straps or harnesses when he does his rock climbing. So he does this thing called free soloing. So he just climbs up like the face of a mountain with no ropes, no security, no nothing. And like to me, that seems absolutely insane and crazy. But to him, that's his everyday life. Like he loves it. Like that's the most exciting thing that he has to do. It's the same thing as like people that are like, you're going to do and start a business, or you want to be an entrepreneur, or YouTuber, or content creator, or like you want to be an actor or something like that. To one person, like the parents could be like, or friends could be like, you're absolutely crazy, you're insane for doing that thing. But to them, they're like, no, this is the thing that I love doing most of all. For me too, like I love going on long bike rides and runs, like you and I were talking at the beginning. It's just like some people would be like, you're absolutely insane for going on a run. Like you run this many miles per week and you're averaging this many miles a day. It's like you're insane for doing that. But it's like, that's not crazy. Like that's healthy to me and to you. But like to other people outside in the like out inside of these different worlds, it's like they're absolutely insane. So it's like I don't think there's one strict definition of crazy, because like if you get into, I don't know why this popped into my mind. Like if you go into like a loony bin, and loony bin is probably not the best word, but like if you go into like a mental, and I feel like mental asylum is also not great, but you go into like a place where like there's mentally unstable people, like to them the outside world is crazy, but to them inside that building, like everything's sane. There's also other times where like prisoners as well too, like they are considered crazy, but like they'll get back out in the real world and they can't function, so then they go end up getting back locked up because they find more peace of mind there. Same thing with military people, like the SEALs. Like people would think these people are absolutely insane and crazy, yet we need those people in this world to be able to survive and protect us in these different regards that we didn't have. I just feel like everybody has their own definition of what crazy is, and it's a matter of like what I find crazy is probably different from what you find crazy, and letting people just like be who they are, letting them do what they want to do, letting them like just live the life that they want to live, even if it does seem crazy to us. But like if it makes them happy, it makes them happy, regardless of like whatever else somebody else thinks. It's just so challenging for that because, as you were saying too at the beginning, like you had friends and then they kind of like dipped off and kind of fell out. Same thing for myself. It's like people would rather not be themselves and be considered like sane than be like crazy and alone for a little while until they find those other people. But like I feel like everybody in business and politics, like in any endeavor, is considered crazy until they're sane. Like Mr. Beast was considered crazy, but now he's like the most popular YouTuber. Like David Goggins crazy, like Rogan crazy. Like all these people are considered crazy. The dude that decided that like the Earth wasn't at the center of the universe was crazy, and then he's like, no, the sun's actually the one that's at the center of the universe. But everybody thought he was crazy.
Listen, I'll give you food for thought. The definition of crazy. The definition of crazy, quite literally, definition of crazy is quite literally like just the definition of what is normal. What is normal? It changes. It has changed for millennia. It has always been constantly changing. There's no such thing as normal. There's such thing as boxing yourself in, to fit the norm, and fit what everybody else is doing. But are you going to be really happy that way? Like trying to put on a face or whatever, you're not really going to be that happy. Not being open with who you want to be and who you are. And yeah. Really, I'll give you more food for thought. Homosexuality, being gay, that was considered a mental illness in the 1960s. But you know what was considered normal in the South? Segregation, racism, and separating people based on race, and yeah. And that wasn't considered mentally ill, but homosexuality, choosing who you love, just because they're a man, like that was considered crazy. That was considered a mental illness. People were put on medication for that. There were actually some civil rights leaders that were put in psychiatric institutions during the 1960s, like civil rights movement, were just put in there, just because they were crazy, and that's messed up. It really is messed up.
Well, did you ever see the movie The Intimidation Game by any chance? Benedict Cumberbatch? Yeah. Like, I mean, that dude was a homosexual, and they put him on medications to help him not be a homosexual. And then I think he either died or ended up killing himself at the end of the movie. So it's just like it's challenging, and like this is something that I used to be. But like my whole life, I was conditioned to think that I was a homosexual because I got picked on by my father by telling me, "Hey, it's okay if you're gay," and I was like, "I'm not." He's like, but it's okay. But like as a kid and having an authoritative figure tell you that over and over and over and over again, it starts to get ingrained into your subconscious and you start to think, maybe I am. But then it's like you go out and you like try to do these things or have these different experiences. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's not me. Like I love the subtle touch of a woman or something like that. And you find these different things, but it's just like so many people are so conditioned by like their own parents' insecurities or other people's insecurities or like the world outside. And it's why I have a big thing, like, sounds like you're into politics quite a bit. But like, that's the whole gender politics thing is like one of the things that I'm just appalled by. I haven't picked up or listened to it much since like 2020, but I just remember when I was learning about it, I was like, this is just absolutely insane. I don't get anything wrong with like people doing what they want to do, but also at the same time, I think it ties back to more like mental health issues. And that's where like when you were talking about how the DSM-5 needs to be changed as well too, is like, certain things can't be talked about in the DSM-5 because of certain ideas or topics or taboos that go against like people's mental health or gender or whatever it may be. But it's just like you have to be willing to talk about those things because in all likelihood, like God, our creator, I don't believe he makes mistakes. Like everything is perfect. Everything's done the exact way that it needs to be done. But you're telling people that like they aren't the way that they were meant to be. But it's like, is that really true? Because even when you look back at history, and I'm a little fuzzy on this, but my understanding is like when you look back at history, like most societies start to collapse when like genders and identities and like certain like frames start to like fall into one another and they don't have like strict like black and white, up and down, hot and cold type of things. And it's just like that's when things start to fall apart. But But yeah, no, it's true. It's just everybody has their own unique individual opinions on what things need to be like. And I'm just under the impression, like, I'm like, as long as you aren't trying to change me and you let me think and have debates and question things and ideologies and whatever it may be, and you don't fit me in this like box that you're saying, let people do what they want to do. I'm not opposed to that, but like also, if that's the case, then let me do what I want to do and let me have my opinions and let me think the way that I want to think and don't try to force the way that I'm changing things. It's just like we'll have a discussion. Either words afterwards we can think about, like as you were saying, like food for thought. Well, I'll go on a ride or a walk or something like that, and it's like, okay, I do agree with this, or it's like, yeah, I don't really agree with this, and then I continue on with my life. But I just feel like so many people are pushing their own beliefs down everybody else's throats instead of letting the person decide for themselves.
Right, right. And I feel like that's why we shouldn't really like cancel people because they're like necessarily like conservative or like they voted for a certain person. For example, Scott Cawthon, he was the creator of Five Nights at Freddy's, and people had found out that he had donated to Donald Trump. I don't know. I don't think Donald Trump, but he had donated to some Republicans. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he had donated to some conservative people who weren't left wing or they weren't Democrats. They weren't, and he had donated to a lot of these people. Like he donated to a lot of these people, and people like within like had like they had done some really nasty shit. Like his wife was like. His wife was like pregnant and they were trying to stress him out and they were sending death threats and all sorts of crazy shit just because they found out he was like a conservative, whatever. And like, you realize like, why do you need to do this? Like, this person created Five Nights at Freddy's. They aren't like a politician who's like legislating and trying to like put transgender people and like try to kill them or whatever. Like, this guy's also donated to trans people and LGBT people. Like, you all of our politicians are fucked up. Like, like Biden's a racist. Also, he's genocide. He's supporting a genocide. Like, it's just you don't need to. You don't need to force people to like conform into like a specific political mindset and like then try to destroy their career if they aren't in your specific like political ideology or your specific framework, and that's why I'm a left-wing person. I'm fairly left-wing, but I talk to people who are right-wing and I talk to people who are right in general, and I can't really change their viewpoints very often. I can't change a lot of their viewpoints, but it's like it's the way I would talk to them, and the way they would talk to me is far more different than the people that are politicians that are centering the rhetoric in the first place are speaking and screaming and shouting at people and like trying to cancel them, and I can find people who are on the right can find parallels and sympathies with people on the left in general, but of course, we with social media and everything, we're not willing to break the divides and realize that politics doesn't exist. All of these ideological labels and theories and whatever, they don't exist. They were made by humans. War and nations and ideologies and labels were made by humans to begin with, and all these norms and what the definition is of normal, what's not normal, was made by humans. Exactly. And and we aren't ready to realize that. I mean, I realized this in 2023. It changed my life. I wanted to talk about it. I think that we need to bridge the divides by talking in this country, by talking to people who are socialists, who are communists, and people who are liberals and centrists and conservatives and like progressives, and we need to. Maybe you can't change how they believe, but you don't need to believe in all the rhetoric that all the figureheads and the talking heads for all these ideologies speak. You need to, your viewpoints change when you actually talk to these people, and uh, you talk to these people and you experience life. You don't experience politics. You don't experience talking heads or voting or social media or whatever. You just talk to people, and you get more you get more knowledge than ever by just talking. You know, and that's why I could never really understand. You know, for the life of me, even though I'm pretty far to the left, I could never understand it for the life of me. Like hating somebody because they're a conservative. Well, I mean, I understand hating somebody because they're a racist, but when hating somebody who's just your friend, that you fucking play Minecraft with, because they for like fucking Mitt Romney or something. No, I don't really care. At the end of the day, we're living through a historical time period. We're living through 2024. In 2040, 2080, who knows? Like, if we're gonna look back at ourselves the same way, maybe we'll say that we were all wrong. You know.
I mean, that's the hope, right? Kind of like change the direction of the conversation or change the angle of whatever's going on. Because, yeah, dude, I don't know. I've always been under the impression that it's like everything on the news and in the media, like the loudest voice is always the one that wins. It's like all about promoting the negativity, like the bad stuff, because that's what gets clicks because it's entertaining. It's more entertaining than like actually going out and having a conversation and thinking for yourself critically and like say writing down like certain ideas or thoughts, whatever it may be. It's just like let's let me just go watch this video of somebody that talks about this thing and then just like put this blanket statement over, oh, this is how everybody is. But then you go out to the world and it's like, okay, maybe not everybody is that way. Because I'd say like, I don't know, I'm probably more moderate. I would say like I have certain times I lean a little bit more towards the right, I would say, than the left. But maybe that's just my age and because I grew up more in a smaller town. But I was just like, I just don't like the ideas of being able like having certain freedoms taken away. And I'm not saying that all lefts are like that, but like that was just the information that I learned back then. Very well could have changed since I'm not into politics as much as I once was. But I just remember back in the day, it's just like just treat people equally. Like let them make their own choices. Like if somebody doesn't want to wear a mask, then like they don't have to wear a mask. But it's like then you're not taking into consideration everybody else. But it's like then those people aren't taking into consideration the people that don't want to wear the mask. So it's like it's just this whole like cyclical circle thing where it's just like one person has to be right and the other person has to be wrong. But it's just like why can't each individual person just do what they themselves want to do? Like I just have never understood the whole aspect of trying to control somebody and making them do something that they don't want. Like I get that you need to have rules for society to function, but it's also like you kind of need a, and maybe that's more of an anarchist view in a sense, but I don't know. I'm just under the impression like let people do what they want to do. Like they're taking the risk. Like there's a girl during 2020 where we went out to Boulder, and I didn't want to like I was happy wearing my mask inside. Like I was chill with that, but like when I walked outside, I was like, dude, I'm outside. Like, I don't have to wear this. And she got all upset and mad. She's like, you're being inconsiderate of other people. Like, what if these other people don't want to go out? I'm like, maybe they need to take a look at their health. Maybe they need to take a look at other aspects of the world. And she's like, but they have all these other diseases. And I'm like, I get it. Like, I'm not trying to be insensitive to them. Like, we're all dealt our hands of cards that we have. But it's also like you can do certain things to control and change your life circumstances. Like we were talking about at the beginning, nobody's going to come and save you. You got to go do the work yourself. So I just look at it in terms of that, where it's just like, we obviously help other people in the best way that we possibly can, but it's also like you also have to look out for yourself as well too. It's like being on a plane. Like I got to put on my mask first before I put on anybody else's masks, regardless of if it's my kid, my grandma, my mom, whoever's next to me. Like I got to put mine on first, whereas before I was always putting on other people's masks. And it's just a challenging aspect because everybody wants to be right, but nobody wants to acknowledge that they're wrong.
Right.
Yeah, dude, it's just a whole thing. I love talking with people, and I'm not trying to prove anybody wrong by any means. I'm just like,
Yeah, and even if you know, listen, I want to make it clear to the audience, um, me and Caleb, we're at two opposite ends of the political spectrum, but we're still friends, At the end of the day, none of us really care about politics, and none of us really care about labels. We're just sort of talking about it because it's interesting, um, and it's just important to like communicate about like, like discuss. Maybe like, in a few years, Caleb's gonna realize he's wrong, or maybe in a few years, I'm gonna realize I'm wrong. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And the more we discuss, and the more we say, things that are smart or stupid, we'll realize, oh, well, this was stupid and this was smart. And I just hate how we can't communicate because everybody's focused on being so inflammatory, and everybody's so focused on being like a like an alpha, whatever, and like that's why I just really don't like any politician nowadays, you know. Um, but yeah, here. So I'll tell you something. All right, let me give you an example. Um, so during like the era of like when people were first getting accepted for like being homosexuals and being gays, and like the whole thing about like gay marriage was coming up and LGBT rights, like um when that was coming up, you know, it was all people were afraid. A lot of people who had never met, or never really met openly gay people before. They had listened to what all these talking heads on like the internet or like cable news or the news or the news in general would like push, and they'd sort of think that like, okay, well, if gay people want to be married, like, well, they're gonna push that on me. They're gonna like push like homosexuals, because like a small group of very terrible people who are gay are going to be pushing are trying to like are trying to are want to push their sexuality on me. That means everybody else is going to do that, you know and that is a view that goes for any sort of minority group, whether it be people who are black, people who are even white people. I say that as a person of color. People stereotype any race. They stereotype everything. They always look at the past. They don't really look at the present. They don't realize that it's a small group of people who are these depraved assholes, and it's not the entire group of people. It's just that we have media that like boosts these people or the stories of these people, to stir up hatred and buy votes, and a lot of people thought that gay people, when they would try to like force being gay on straight people, and uh, if people do that, it's fucked up. But when we got out of that mindset, and people didn't look at what they saw on social media. They actually just talked to gay people. You know, they they came to the realization. It's not how it works. These people don't want to force things on other people. They're just Joe or whoever else. They're just normal people. And I feel like similar thing is going on with similar things going on with people of color. People are like, oh, well, all Indians, they smell like shit, and they abuse women, and people say the same things about black people, and it's a vicious cycle. But people need to understand, they need to move on from the past. They need to understand, why do I hate this person? What about me and myself makes me hate this person? And I feel that's part of the reason why we're so divided nowadays. It's because we have all these stereotyping and echo chambers that are pushed by social media on every political ideology and label, centrist too. You know, because all these labels are made up. At the end of the day, the English language, even if you want to get really technical, was made up. It was evoluted. The English language evolved over thousands and thousands of years into what we know now today as English. Yeah, and humans were made with the innate ability to create and learn and evolve, and that's what we've been doing for decades and centuries, millennia.
Like, I mean, even think about it. Like, the words that we have nowadays, that Gen Z, millennials, like boomers, like these words, they didn't exist back then. Memes, like, they had no meaning whatsoever. But then somebody decided, like, hey, this word now has this meaning to this said thing. Like, gay back in the day, homosexuals, like transgenders, like those words didn't mean anything back then. Like, I think back in Rome, like all the Romans, I'm pretty sure 99% of them were like sleeping with dudes all the time, basically. Like, that's just what the world was like back then. But then as society evolves, we start to, yeah, we just kind of start to fall into this rut of like, oh, if you aren't this way and if you don't fit this specific version of myself that I view you as, I don't want to be friends with you. But it's like, we don't want to be crabs in a bucket pulling each other back down into the hole. Like, we want to be helping each other grow as we go with time. And I feel like that's kind of been a big disconnect that we've had over the years. At least I've noticed it. And that why I like doing these things is because showing that, like, hey, somebody that's, we might not necessarily agree, but that doesn't mean that we can't still be friends.
Right.
Because, yeah, dude, it's a whole, I don't know, it's a whole thing that I don't think we'll ever fully understand, but it still sounds like what you're saying is like, it still comes back to like looking at ourselves and what we can do and not like, oh, this person's doing it wrong. Like, you asked a couple of questions, or you said a couple of questions that it's just like, if I ask this question of myself, it's like, oh, that's perfect. Because like you're looking for the answer within you compared to like, oh, this person is to blame for all of these bad situations. Like, I didn't hear you say any of those statements or questions beforehand. It was more like self-directed stuff, which I feel like is so much more meaningful and deep and actually can induce and inspire change compared to blaming somebody else outside of us.
Right.
Yeah, dude. It's I don't know. I've had fun doing this, dude. Like, I feel like we could keep going a little bit, but I am getting hungry. Unless you got something else that you're looking to add on or anything like that, always happy to go a little bit longer. We're at about 2 hours right now, so it's up to you, man.
Um. Yeah, I think we've covered quite a lot. You know. I think this has been a pretty productive stream, and this was a lot. This was actually like pretty productive for me too because it allowed me to, articulate a lot of what I was thinking and what I actually truly believe about the world. You know, it's really helped.
It's fun, isn't it? Like, actually getting your ideas out in a way that's hopefully non-judgmental. I was doing my best not to do any of that, but it's just like just listening to
Right.
people as people because like I don't consider like I consider you just a person. I know you talked about earlier about like being a person of color, but it's just like as corny as it sounds, it's like I don't see that. I see more people for their character and how they act and behave. Like, sure,
Yeah,
stereotypes
I
exist
feel like
for. Go ahead.
yeah, yeah. I feel like people like in every political like on the extremes, like people always look at people for their skin color and not who they actually are, and I'm pretty disappointed by that. Even from people in my own ideology, just it's like well, I don't really share views with them, but my camp, I'll say, like um, you get kind of it's kind of condescending the way that people talk and they sort of they like they sort of like feel like racial guilt and that's like a whole different thing, but it's just like I don't really care, like you're my friend, like don't really see color or race, like just see you for the concept of your character,
And that's how it needs to
it's just
be.
us and them and yeah, it's that Pink Floyd song.
Ups and downs.
No, us and them. Um, yeah, here, listen to this. This came to me at like a pretty terrible point in my life. I remember listening to this song, and it's about you know division and hatred and war. It's just the cycle, and it's beautiful because the way that the song is set up, it teaches you to move past it. You know.
I mean, that's all we can really do, right? Is just take it one day at a time, like the problem is that I've run into, and maybe you've run into this as well too, is all we can do is tell the past stories that we have told ourselves time and time again. And like there's a book, and it was by a Native American as well too. And I just read the first chapter, but it's called The Truth About Stories. And it was a fascinating like first book because like their whole creation story was around like how the earth was formed like on a magic sea turtle floating through the world, and that's what they believed to be true. And then we come over to our like to America, and it's like we believe that God and Christians is like the way that, and Jesus was the savior. And I'm not saying that he isn't or wasn't, but it's just like we all have these different stories that we tell ourselves. And I think it's just a matter of breaking away from those past stories and realizing that like this is what happened in the past, but that doesn't have to define me as I am right now. Like I think back to Alan Watts' quote, where he's just like, I don't have to be the same person that I was 5 minutes ago. It's just everybody that we surround ourselves with, from what I've been able to find, is they expect us to be the same person that we were 5 minutes ago because we fit that mold that we've been conditioned into over the years, where it's like we break out of that mold and then we aren't that person, and then that person doesn't know who we are, and it's just like, oh, this person isn't fitting who I once believed them to be. But now all of a sudden, me, myself, and maybe you as well too, is like, well, now we're living for ourselves and not for somebody else. And it's very challenging for other people to understand that like we aren't going to fit their mold anymore, and we're going to do what we feel is right in our own hearts. And it's a much more freeing and liberating feeling, but it also does require some, maybe a sacrifice, but it's also some solitude as well too, until the right people come around. But it's like, is that a price worth paying? I think it is, like a price to pay to be yourself compared to be somebody else that you aren't. Because like, I mean, the one person that you got to spend with the rest of your life with is yourself. So I'm like, if you don't like that person, what are you doing? And that's been my whole thing, and why it sucks. But it's like, rather be alone, not have a whole bunch of friends, and just make friends as I go along with life, and get to have cool conversations with people like yourself and other people I plan on talking with as well too. It's just, I find it a lot more exciting and joyful doing it this way, because we just get much more clarity out of it from this point of view.
Right.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, I appreciate you chatting with me for the past 2 hours or so. It was fun, especially after my little mishap this morning. But if you want to do this again, more than happy to. I feel like it'd be fun. The more we grow together, I feel like is the best way to go. And I don't know if you want anything like, I don't know if there's places that you want people to check you out. I know that you said you didn't want to do a lot of any of that stuff, but I know you also said you had YouTube channels, so I didn't know if anybody that was listening, if you wanted to make a little plug.
I haven't made it yet.
Oh.
Let me actually, because I gave you a link to something, but decided that maybe I'll do it from a different profile because here, give me a sec.
Yeah, take your time.
Give me 1 sec. It's just because. All right. So I wasn't able to find. So this might. Yeah, I don't really have like I need to change the link, but if you want, like, post it here if anybody's watching.
Yeah, I can put it in the description afterwards as well too.
Right. Wait, no, that's not the right one. All right, whatever. We'll just do it. I'll answer the description afterwards.
Yeah, just ping me, dude, on Discord with that link, and I'll drop it in the Discord, or in the description, so anybody that's watching can click on it.
All right. Good chatting with you, man.
Yeah, likewise, Athen. You have a good rest of your day, man, and we'll chat again sometime soon.
Of course.
Later. So that was fun, you guys. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I'm going to wrap it up right here. I don't know what view this is, OBS. But yeah, I mean, basically, kind of what Athens was saying is this channel, these videos, these things, like, it's kind of like PBS. I don't know if you ever watched PBS back in the day, but my whole take is, like, channel for you. Like, I'm here to have conversations with you. I've always done this with other people out in public. So I just kind of want to do it in a much more wider range because I know that we can connect with a lot more people this way. So if you ever want to chat, like you can ping me on Discord, or you can even ping me on Instagram as well too, and we can set up a time to get you set up on Discord, or maybe do a FaceTime or something like that to make it as easy as possible for you. But I love to hear your story. I love to hear what you have going on in your life. I just genuinely love like these type of conversations and being curious and questioning and learning and understanding that like just because two people disagree doesn't mean that we have to be completely separate from one another, and we actually have more in common than we think we do, and it's just a matter of judging the person by their character more than anything else. So like I said, if you guys are interested in doing any of those things moving forward, I'll keep doing these live streams for you. I feel like this is the beginning of something great. Just take it day by day, do the reps like we do at the gym, with fitness, with meditation, with exercise, with running, with whatever it may be. Like just do the reps every single day and just win. And we've got this. Like you and I, we got this on lock. We're just going to keep making those small little incremental steps each and every single day and just keep going one day at a time. And just a little background too, and then we'll wrap it up. Right beforehand, I had streamed as well too, and I kind of got yelled at for streaming in the way that I did, and I did apologize for that because that was my wrong and my doing. But I also found out as well, it's better to at least try something instead of just sitting at home and like wishing for things to be different, because you have to go out and physically go get those things that you yourself want. So as long as you go do that, you'll be perfectly okay. And audio and all these other visual things, they're going to be evolving with time, but I got to start where I am. And this is where I am at right now. And if I'm starting here, I know you can do the exact same thing. So with that being said, I'll wrap it up. You guys can sub to the channel. You can check out Athens' link in the description once I get that. And otherwise, I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in the next stream. So thanks for coming along and joining in on this little adventure that we're on together.